Welcome back. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris's economic and tax policies in focus with just 13 days to go until voters head to the polls on Election Day. The Wall Street Journal editorial board writes this: Mr. Trump's overall economic agenda is superior to Kamala Harris's model of tax, spend, mandate, and regulate. But his tariff agenda is an anti-growth wild card that poses considerable economic risk in a second term. Now, this has been the thoughts of the Journal for some time. I sat down with President Trump on Sunday Morning Futures earlier this month to discuss his policies, and he told me all of that talk of tariffs are just threats. Watch this.
You even introduced this 15% corporate tax rate for companies who produce in America and hire American workers. But how will you pay for it? The Committee for a Responsible Budget says your plans will increase the debt by $7.5 trillion.
But they don't know.
The Wall Street Journal said that your plans will increase the debt and deficits more than Kamala Harris's.
If I do this, you're going to have car companies coming back to the country because of the taxes and the tariffs. The tariffs will protect them when they come in. Tariffs are a very beautiful word. It's a word that's going to make our country rich again.
What about the criticism, and the Journal has done this as well, that if you do put something like a 200% tariff on a product, that it's only going to mean higher prices for consumers?
It's not. No, it doesn't mean that.
It's got to be passed on somehow.
No, Maria. All I'm doing is saying, I'll put 200 or 500. I don't care. I'll put a number where they can't sell one car into the United. I don't want them to sell the car because I don't want them hurting our car companies.
How are you going to pay for all of this no tax on stuff? And you said that there's a lot of fat in government that you're going to save money.
I gave you an answer, growth.
And it is about growth. Joining me now is Paulson & Company President and founder John Paulson. John, great to see you.
Hey, good morning, Maria.
Thank you so much for being here. What did you make of that back and forth with President Trump and me? Is it just a threat, these tariffs?
I think,
are we seeing growth?
The 200,000 is a threat, but the general, the general concept of using tariffs to protect and stimulate American industry is something that's necessary.
Tell me about it.
Well, there's a theoretical concept that free trade benefits everybody, but we're not in a free trade world. U.S. only charges, on average, a 2% tariff on imported goods. That's much less than other countries. As a result, everyone can sell here unlimited quantities while we're restricted in what we can sell in other countries. So now we have a $1.2 trillion trade deficit, and that's been devastating to American manufacturing, American jobs, American wages, and American communities. So we have to rectify that situation. If we can't get free trade deals, the way to do that is with tariffs.
And President Trump has been so clear about this for so many years, and we haven't really heard a cohesive strategy from Kamala Harris. I've been saying that there's a sophistication with Trump in terms of the economy. He is sophisticated about the economy that you're not really getting that from Kamala Harris. You've said that if Harris wins this election next month, you will remove your money from U.S. markets. You will sell and you will go all in on cash and gold. Is that right?
That's true. I think we're at a precipice between the two candidates. And if we go down the path of Harris, which is she wants to raise taxes, capital gains taxes, income taxes, corporate taxes, that's generally going to be negative for the economy and the markets.
Yeah, tell me about that, because she claims that she's only going to raise taxes on the highest earners. You think that trickles down?
It doesn't matter. If you put higher taxes, then there's less stimulus to buy stocks, less corporate earnings. So the earnings go down, the corporate tax rates go up, the individual tax rates go up. So generally, I think the market would go down. Plus, the other thing, the growth that we're getting in the economy today is almost entirely due to increased government spending. So the government spending this year rose by 14%. That's more than the entire growth we've achieved in the economy. But you can only do that for so long. Right now, the deficit's close to $2 trillion. The deficit spending is over 6% of the economy. So sooner or later, you're going to reach a wall. And we're coming near that point now.
And I feel like it's so disingenuous of Kamala Harris to talk about plans to rein in inflation by, getting corporations to admit that they've been price gouging. It's so disingenuous to not recognize the $7 trillion in spending on how we got there.
Yeah, that's because they don't really have an economic plan. Their plan is spend, spend, spend. Increase government spending, increase taxes, increase the deficit. That doesn't work.
But do you have a plan for the debt and deficits? I know President Trump has said it's about growth, but in a practical way, how do you envision the next 4, 5, 10 years in terms of putting a dent into the debt and deficits?
Well, President Trump has made two goals. He wants to bring down inflation, and he wants to bring down interest rates. And to do that, you have to contain and bring down the deficit. And he's got policies to do that. One is by constraining spending. For instance, the tax incentives for the Green New Deal, subsidizing uneconomic forms of energy, such as solar, wind, electric vehicles, cost about $1.2 trillion over the next 10 years. So eliminating those subsidies is a pretty significant reduction in spending. By putting tariffs, if you put an average 15% tariff on the $3 trillion of imports, that's $450 billion of incremental revenues. Growth will add incremental revenues. So by reducing spending, increasing revenues, the deficit will come down.
President Trump has also talked about really capitalizing on the energy capacity in America. He says, look, if you put more oil on the market produced by America, you're going to get oil prices down. Is it as simple as that?
I think so. We put a lot of constraints on domestic energy production. Biden put a moratorium on any new LNG facilities. So by providing incentives for energy production, that will increase the supply of energy, which should result in lower prices.
Now, President Biden has been praising Kamala Harris and her role in passing the Inflation Reduction Act. He did so again yesterday, and she has admitted that she was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act. Watch this.
One of the proudest things I've ever done was pass the Inflation Reduction Act that allowed us to negotiate lower prices for prescription drugs. Not a single Republican voted for this. The Democrats in Congress, and Kamala, by the way, cast a tie-breaking vote to make sure that. Don't tell me one vote doesn't count.
So he's bragging about it, John, and I also asked Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont about that spending spree when he joined me on Sunday Morning Future Sunday. Watch this. In the 4 years where we saw inflation spike to up 9.1%, it came on the heels of all of that spending, $7 trillion in spending. Did you go overboard with the spending after COVID?
Look, Maria, I will never forget, and I think your viewers will never forget, the kind of world we were living in during COVID. People were flocking to hospitals.
Absolutely.
Couldn't accommodate them. You know, small businesses were going under. People were afraid to go to work. People were dying going to work. We responded. And by the way, if you look at Joe Biden's popularity record, you know when he was most popular? It's after we passed the American Rescue Plan. We saved childcare. We saved hospitals. We saved colleges. So I don't apologize. But to your point, take a look at the kind of profits that are in the food industry, in the oil industry. They've been raising their prices exponentially and ripping off the American consumer, in my view.
Now, I know that the margins of those companies are very tiny, so I don't know how they're price gouging. But your reaction to his defense of all that spending, John?
I think the act should be, you should drop reduction. Should have been called the Inflation Act.
That's right.
Inflation under Biden has been over 20% cumulatively since he's been elected. Under Trump was just over 7%. So Trump managed the economy much better, much lower inflation, growth in real wages. And I'd expect the same if he's elected again.
So what do you make of all of these polls that are so tight, and the money as well? John, I mean, Kamala Harris has the edge when it comes to money over Donald Trump. Harris's campaign raised nearly $222 million in September, pushing her fundraising total to $1 billion. The Trump campaign brought in $63 million last month. But he's lagging her money raise. You were among the key people who raised money for President Trump, and you continue to do so. What's the story here?
I don't think the amount of campaign cash is going to have that big an impact on the campaign. Trump won in 2016 and raised much less than his opponent did. I think the better indication than polls are the betting odds, and that has right now Trump ahead 60-40. And I think the momentum is clearly in President Trump's favor. And I think at this point it's more likely that he will be elected.
Which betting sites do you look at? Because I looked at Polymarket, and Polymarket, he's at like 64% or something. She's at 38%. Then there's Kalshi, also putting him at 60%, her in the 30s. Do you look at those?
Yeah, I look
betting
at
sites?
both, and
Yeah.
they're both showing similar results between 60 plus versus 40 minus.
And why do you think the betting sites are better than the actual polling that shows such a tight
Yeah,
race?
the pollings are biased. They proved to be biased and incorrect before. The betting odds are a real indication of what the odds are for the election.
Well, it's clear that you have a serious sophistication about the economy and about money as well, John. Are you the next Treasury Secretary? Should Trump get in?
You know, we'll have to see. We haven't crossed that bridge yet. I'm, willing to help out. I'd like to see the economy do much better. I think he's got a very good economic program, and if implemented, will result in continued prosperity for Americans.
All right, real quick, hypothetically, let's say you get that job as Treasury Secretary. Your number one priority on day one will be?
Extending the Trump tax cuts. The tax policy was very, very helpful. The economy grew. That's the most important thing. Second is to bring down public spending, to get rid of these subsidies. Third is to protect American industries through tariffs. And fourth would be to work with Elon Musk to, bring down the cost of regulation and the number of regulations.
Yes, President Trump told us he's going to be Secretary of Cost Cutting, which we like. Not a cabinet position, but a new role. John, it's great to get your take on all of that.
Thank you, Maria.
Thank you so much for being here.
Bye-bye.
John Paulson. We'll be right back. Stay with us.